Hello, welcome to Haunted Happenings with the Taunton Paranormal Group and the Paranormal Warriors of St. Michael. I'm your host, Jake, and I'd like to take a minute to say goodbye to our co-host, Lou. Due to personal reasons, Lou is no longer with Taunton Paranormal. Although we do have a new co-host to the show, and I'd like to welcome Scotty Rodriguez. Welcome, Scotty.
Thank you, Rob.
You're very welcome. The new co-host to Haunted Happenings. So it's a new date for us. We're moving forward in 2011 with a new co-host. So tonight we have a special guest. If you're familiar with the paranormal and watch any of the national shows, you'll be very familiar with our guest. I'd like to welcome Carl Johnson to the show. Welcome, Carl.
Hello, nice to meet you, and welcome, Scotty.
Thank you.
I understand you're conducting the whole interview tonight, so we're ready for you, or at least some of it.
Some.
That'd be a good point to break you in.
Just don't start laughing. If you feel the urge to laugh, suppress that. Don't start to laugh. Think of something unfunny.
That's easy.
So that'll make it worse.
See?
So as we have Carl on the show, can we get, for the viewers, a little bit of background on yourself that maybe drew you to the paranormal field?
Well, I was born in Rhode Island, lived most of my life in the state of Rhode Island, and there was some paranormal activity going on in my parents' house while myself and my siblings were growing up. We didn't call it paranormal back then, we just said haunted.
There's a ghost.
Yeah, there were haunted happenings in that house out in Situate, Rhode Island. Furnishings would move around. The furniture would be misplaced, sometimes wrappings on the walls. More interesting than that was the sound of children's voices running around the corner of the house.
Wow.
And kept things interesting from time to time. I mean, it was hard to call it a haunted house. We just had some things in the 1970s that we could not explain.
Right.
Until my sister Cynthia and I started to play on a Ouija board. Yeah, not normally recommended Ouija boards, but
no.
Everyone must make up their own mind how they feel about Ouija boards, the talking spirit board. So my sister and I placed our fingers on the planchette. It started to move around as we asked our questions. It would spell out answers. And at one time, we asked the spirit of the board, "What is your name?" Spelled out Sylvia. And then, Sylvia, S-Y-L-V-I-A. And then my sister and I asked, "Can you give us a sign that you're here?" And the planchette on the board spelled out cellar, C-E-L-L-A-R. So my sister and I left the table and went to the top of our basement stairs.
You were brave.
Yeah. We went to the top of the stairs. We didn't go all the way down into the cellar. Waited there about 15 minutes. We were just about ready to give up. As we were going back upstairs, we heard thump, thump on the wall. So we stopped, listened again, said, "Is that you?" About a minute later, we heard another 3 knocks.
Wow.
So we felt we had made communication successfully with the spirit world. It wasn't long after that where the figure of a woman started to appear downstairs in the cellar. I set up the basement room as my own room, my rec room, and moved a television down there, would sleep on the couch so I could have my own space.
Right.
Well, as I was setting up that room, I used to hear shuffling around. Now, we would hear that when we were upstairs, but this time I was right down there, and I'd hear moving around, look around, nobody was down there, no rodents would do this, and then I started to see the figure of a woman walking through. I mean, she was quite clear. She was dressed in clothing of about a century before, in a black frock-type dress, black or actually light gray, and I could see her features in the dim light of the basement, and she would walk right by me.
How old were you when this happened?
Oh, it started when I was, the Ouija board use was when I was 15 and 16, but I started to see the apparition when I was 17 years old.
Okay.
And I must have seen this figure 3 times, perhaps 4 times altogether, clearly. She would make no sound as she walked by me, and she seemed so solid that all I could think of doing was saying hello. And then within the span of maybe half a second, I realized that she was not of our time. She was out of place and out of time.
Right.
She walked by me soundlessly, and then I would call for somebody to come downstairs, and she would be gone. The manifestation would last about 10 seconds, which is a long time to be viewing a ghost.
Right.
You know, But within that span of half a second, I would realize I'm seeing something from another world. I'm seeing a ghost.
Did you?
And that panic would set in and I'd be frozen to the spot.
Right.
Nowadays, I'd have the presence of mind. I like to think to bring out a camera and take a picture or try to record her sound, but though she wasn't making any sound at that time.
No, back then, obviously, you probably didn't even think or know. But looking back, would
Yeah.
you said that was a residual or an intelligent haunt?
I would classify this one as intelligent, and I have a reason for saying that. Responsive haunt, because I was recording some music down in that cellar, and when I played back the recording, I was there with a friend, my friend Mark. We both heard it. When we played back the recording, towards the end of the recording, it was on a cassette player, we heard what sounded like a voice in slow motion. And it sounded as though it was saying, "Someone help me."
Wow.
And we played that again and again, and that really did sound like a voice asking for help, a plea for help. Well, my friend had recording equipment. He sped that recording up to about 7 or 8 times its original recording speed. At that speed, the tonal quality sounds like a woman, and it says, "Carl, help me, help."
Wow.
Now that's before I'd ever heard the term EVP,
Yeah.
electronic voice phenomena, applied to a spirit voice. So I never knew what to make of that, still don't. I don't know how to help this spirit, but maybe sometime I'll find a way to. I don't know if this spirit was looking for passage to another dimension, another realm, was trapped there somehow. And the house was younger than I. The house was 6 months younger than I was.
Wow.
So perhaps it was the property there.
Right.
Perhaps it was the Ouija board usage that brought in a spirit, invited the spirit in. But it seemed to be intelligent, responsive, and had some kind of agenda in that it spoke a plea for help.
Well, to hear
Yeah.
a voice in itself would be eerie.
Oh,
but to have
yes.
it speak your name
Right.
must have taken it to another level
Yeah.
completely.
Well, that fixed my interest in the paranormal world and
Ah.
studying things that are out of the ordinary and can't easily be explained.
Right, right.
Do you have a paranormal group now, and what's the name of it, and how did it come about?
I do. I am a member of Beyond the Veil Paranormal. That was founded by my girlfriend, Dina Palazzini, in 2009. So it's still pretty new. Now, Dina has always had experiences since she was the age of 3. She's empathic, intuitive. She sees spirit forms, hears them, and senses the emotion of living people around her. Not
Right.
just deceased, not just disembodied spirits, but she feels emotions from living people. She can sense that.
Right.
So we founded Beyond the Veil Paranormal, actually it was her idea, to better explore these interests the way we do, specialized for us. So it's a small group. We intentionally keep membership small.
Right.
It works better that way, but we do work in cooperation with colleagues such as yourselves.
Right. I actually had a question for you. Before starting Beyond the Veil, now, as I mentioned, people, if they follow the paranormal, have obviously seen you on a couple of television shows.
They're out there, yes.
The first one that I was aware of was Ghost Hunters that you were on. Did you do anything prior to that for television, or did you start off as a group and work towards television with that?
I'd been involved in other paranormal investigative groups, the first one being at Rhode Island College. Now, I was attending Rhode Island College with some classes. I didn't register as a full-time student, and I was invited by a group there at Rhode Island College in Providence, Rhode Island, to join PIRO, P-I-R-O. That's parapsychological. Back then, nobody said paranormal. We all said
Right.
parapsychology. So that's parapsychological investigative and research organization. And I met these folks at a lecture presented by the famed ghost hunting couple, Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Huh?
Ed's deceased. He passed on 5 years ago.
Sadly, yes.
Yes, and we miss him. He was a driving force in paranormal exploration. His
Right.
wife, Lorraine, is still very active on the lecture circuit.
Definitely a pioneer
Right.
in the paranormal,
Right.
and a sweetheart to boot.
Yes,
She
yes.
is indeed. Yeah, we've got to get her here for an interview. Her schedule is so full.
We were fortunate. We did actually interview Lorraine last year.
Yeah. It was early last year.
For a woman of her age, I give her so much credit because she is like the Energizer Bunny. She just doesn't stop, and God bless her.
Yeah, I don't think I could keep up with her.
No, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah.
actually had the privilege of lecturing with Ed and Lorraine.
Really?
Back some time ago, back in the 1970s, which you wouldn't recall, but
No,
there
no.
was this decade we referred to as the 70s.
I remember the
Yeah,
70s.
styles were different. Yeah, I survived that. I don't show too many pictures of me from the 70s. But I was lecturing for a while with Ed and Lorraine Warren. Got to learn a lot from them.
Oh, I'm
and
sure.
that was a fun time, the golden era.
I would have loved to have met Ed. Although I've heard, Ed could be very, not difficult, tough. A very tough guy.
Oh yeah, he was the big guns.
Yeah.
He didn't come out and challenge Ed because he would speak out publicly for what he believed was right.
Right.
So
I've seen it. There was actually a clip I caught, I think it was on the internet, where somebody challenged him, and I think it was the haunting in Connecticut.
Right.
And he went insane on the guy. He don't discredit him.
well, while Ed and Lorraine's methods could be questionable at times, Ed was very adamant about supporting his own veracity. If you said Ed wasn't right about something, or if you said Ed might be contriving evidence, or they were not someplace where they said they were, then Ed would come out and challenge that. Ed was a great debater, and he had a powerful,
sure.
booming voice. You think I'm loud? Wow. Ed did not need a microphone to fill up an auditorium. And what a sense of humor they had together, Ed and Lorraine. They would start their little bickering routine sometimes during a lecture. Well, Ed, now, plug it in, Ed. We've got the slides. And it was just a pleasure to see them lecture together,
Yeah.
which they're fondly remembered together.
Yeah, we're fortunate. I'll let you go to your question. But we were able to see Lorraine at a lecture, and it would have been nice to see them both. But,
Yeah.
Well, you may get your chance later this year in the autumn. She's very active lecturing.
Right.
I try to see her every year if I can.
Is there a specific area of the paranormal that you deal with?
Well, yes, demonology, as a matter of fact. I am a paranormal investigator, and when we say paranormal, that is a multifaceted field of exploration because we're dealing with everything from spirits, hauntings, to cryptozoology, which is unidentified, unaccepted by scientific research, animals or creatures.
Right.
UFOs, that could be encompassed in paranormal. But I specialize as a demonologist, meaning I am sometimes called in to assist with cases that are more hostile and threatening, where there seems to be a spirit that has a definite agenda, usually a hostile one. Now, we think these are otherworldly beings, not just human-generated spirits, but they come from some other realm. And they're ancient, have been around since time immemorial. There are a lot of theories, a lot of suppositions, and a lot of beliefs about what actually caused a demon, what created that.
Right.
Many people think they're fallen angels. All we know for sure is that they're here. They are generally more powerful with their energy output than the human-generated spirit, and they're not very friendly.
No.
Now, they cause trouble.
Right.
I mean, maybe there are demons that aren't threatening, but I don't hear about them.
Well, no.
No, nobody calls me in to
Right.
explore something that's not bothering them.
Right. No, it's interesting. We've had quite the spike in demonic cases ourselves.
Yeah, why is that on the rise? It seems to be. Would you say the last 3 or 4 years?
Absolutely.
Especially it's escalating?
Absolutely.
Maybe more people are willing to come forth and tell their stories. Maybe there are more instances.
I think that has a lot to do with it. I mean, for more or less, the paranormal world has become more accepted with the television shows, and I think people are more willing to come out and say that they've had experiences.
Yeah, now there's the push and pull, the good and not so good about these paranormal reality shows, in that they can be somewhat exploitative of people, of their results they get, what they showcase, but they have given a certain sense of legitimacy to paranormal investigation, and more people want to become involved in that.
Right.
And they're tackling some profound mysteries. Where do we go after we leave this world? After bodily death? Does anything exist? Does anything continue? People want answers to those questions that religion doesn't and faith don't always supply. They want to take it a step further. They want something concrete, something that can be replicated, played back, and shown on a film.
Right.
Now, I brought a couple of the tools of a demonologist. They're not very scientific, but they are used. We have holy water, blessed by clergy, and the cross. Now, I've been appearing on episodes of The Haunted,
Right.
shown on Animal Planet, that documents how animals respond to paranormal activity, and you will see this cross on every episode of The Haunted in which I appear. That's always with me. And another device which is not too scientific but seems useful are dowsing rods. Now, some surveying companies employ dowsers, people who seem talented at finding water lines under the surface of the earth.
Right.
We don't know how these work, some electromagnetic principle, but they can spin around, point, indicate, and they have been incorporated into paranormal investigation. So the code we use, people I associate with, most commonly use is for yes, affirmative. The rods will move towards the person, away from each other and towards the person.
Okay.
For no or negative, they'll stay out straight or cross over. They can point and indicate. And you don't lean them down. You try not to let gravity affect them too much. That's a small pair. They're easily transportable.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Your opinion, anyway, on the dowsing rods. That we've worked with some other groups, and not that this is a bash or anything by any
Right.
means, but their opinions on what the dowsing rods did were slightly different. We were told that by holding the rods, the left was female, the right was male, and if it went in counterclockwise, it was a demonic entity, and if it went clockwise, it was a human spirit.
If you expect them to move and use those indications, I think the rods have to be trained, have to be housebroken. If you tell the rods that's what they're supposed to show, like left hand would be female, right would be male, then they
Okay.
should respond that way. I don't think there's one universal code for using the dowsing rods.
Okay. So in theory, they're
yeah.
responding to whatever energy the spirit
Right.
or demon is throwing
Well,
off.
Dina Palazzini, the director of Beyond the Veil Paranormal, fashions these dowsing rods, and she prays over them as she's making them. You see why we don't put sharp edges on them. Because they spin around. Let's see if I can get these to work. I've given demonstrations of the dowsing rods where they won't do anything. Just, I'm going, come on, come on. They don't always move. See if I can get these to work now. Okay, I'm speaking to the spirit in the studio, or whatever spirit is near us and can respond. If you are here with us, could you move the rods? Point toward Jake. Can you do that?
That's interesting. Not necessarily a good thing.
Thank you. Thank you. See, they're warming up, it seems. There we go. So they're responding.
Right.
And I can't manipulate these without an obvious
Right.
motion of
I
my
think
wrist. But,
Anybody that's
yeah.
used the dowsing rods would know,
Yeah.
that
Well, they give us a visual tool
Yeah.
to
Right.
use, and they're safer than a Ouija board because you're not surrendering part of your body to them, really, what you
Right.
need to do for the Ouija board. Let's see. Could you spin one of the rods? That's why we don't put the sharp edges on these longer ones. There we go.
right, yeah, those look quite
There we
long.
go.
Now, do you have a preference when using
Thank you.
tools of the trade, like the dowsing rods or an EMF detector or a K2 meter, which essentially do very similar things?
Yes, in my Beyond the Veil toolkit, I brought a K2 meter, brought an EMF detector, and the Gauss Master. I like using the Gauss Master because it will give you results. The EMF detectors, electromagnetic field detectors, will indicate fluctuations in the surrounding electromagnetic field. So
No, the Gauss meter, that's natural energy that it's picking up on, isn't it?
yes,
Not necessarily,
Yes, that-
the EMF will pick up on man-made. Am I correct in that?
well, the EMF will detect. It's a simple tool, but it's used by electricians, then incorporated
Right.
into paranormal investigation. If there is a surrounding electromagnetic field, and really on some level there always is,
Right.
that will indicate if it's a man-made charge, as you say, like an electric unit. That's going to indicate any change in the electromagnetic field. They should be sensitive enough to pick up on some emanations from the human body, but you have to hold it really close to the subject to do that.
Right.
Now another instrument, which basically does the same thing, is the K2 meter. The difference with this one is lights up in a spectrum of lights.
Right.
Indicates any change in the surrounding electromagnetic field. Some people use a nickel, place in the tab, keep that going. And again, they give us a visual.
Right.
The Gauss-Master EMF whirs, makes a whistling sound when it goes off, when it has a high charge, when it spikes. This one will just light up.
Right.
I've had good results with both.
And the theory on those, the more lights, the stronger the energy, making it either closer to you, or I don't know if it's necessarily a stronger spirit, but
well, it's stronger charge, or it has more energy at that time.
Right.
Now, we've gotten some interesting results, very consistent results with the K2 meter. I've never seen it in any paranormal investigation in which I've been involved. I've never seen it spike up all the way, yes or no, for each question. I think that's dramatized when you see that. I don't trust that, really.
I know when we do our investigations, I prefer the K2 over the EMF. I think you do too.
Yeah.
You know, I find it more reliable. You know, the digital readout tends to fluctuate too much sometimes. So.
And with the Gauss-Master EMF, if it's going off, especially you have brand new batteries in it and there's a high charge, it's very hard to shut it off. You have to kind of put it in your pocket or close it up, because sometimes it keeps giving that whirring sound.
Is that the same as a tri-field meter? Is it the same?
Tri-field meter is a little more involved. It's more sensitive.
Okay.
Pick up on a larger spectrum. But tri-field meter will do that too.
Yeah.
Sounds like tri-quarter. So we like the Tri-Master.
Let me see. Do you have any other questions regarding that?
Oh, I could think of questions for myself.
I've got questions.
Yeah.
I was going to actually go to you work at Slater Mill.
Slater Mill. In Pawtucket, Rhode Island.
I'd like to talk a little bit about that, but we do have some pictures that you were nice enough to bring with you. If we could put those up on the screen, you could narrate those for us.
Yes, let's see what we have here. This is the exterior of Slater Mill, which was built in 1793, opened as the first successful cotton spinning mill in America, and was actually the beginning of our factory system in this country. It was the kickoff for the American Industrial Revolution. And in back we see the steeple of Pawtucket Congregational Church. Down below is Slater Dam, constructed between 1791 and 1792. So that's the front entrance. Oh, that's some of our people who attended the ghost tour. I started the ghost tours at Slater Mill so that people could come in and experience the paranormal activity within the old buildings for themselves. It's an enjoyable program and sometimes kind of spooky.
Now, is that what goes on at Slater Mill now? Is it strictly the ghost tours? Or
No, we're open for daytime tours. People interested in the history of Slater Mill can come in and explore the museums. The buildings on the site, the 3 buildings, have been restored as museums.
Now, is there another site that was replicated for that? The Slater Mill?
Not that I know, no. Actually, it's always been there. Slater Mill, the building, has been there since 1793. The conjoining building, they're not connected anymore, but the building next to Slater Mill is the 1810 Wilkinson Mill, and that was constructed as a machine shop for Slater Mill.
Okay.
Also on the grounds is the Sylvanus Brown House, which was built in 1758, second oldest house in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and that was moved there in 1962 to make way for the expansion of Interstate Highway 95. And in my experience there, the Sylvanus Brown House is the most haunted building on the site.
Really?
Yeah, it has a definite personality, or personalities.
And what kind of activity would you find there?
Primarily, the spirit we've noticed in Sylvanus Brown House is that of a little girl named Becca. Oh. We call her Becca because she has spoken her name on 2 recordings. Now, conducting a paranormal investigation in the evening there, and Dina was present. This was in April 2009. Dina told us, the group and me, that she kept hearing Rebecca in her mind. She said, I can't shake it. I'm hearing Rebecca again and again. So when she was upstairs in the Brown house, Dina asked, what's your name, sweetheart? And when we play back the digital audio recording, you can hear Dina ask, what's your name, sweetheart? A little voice seems to answer, Becca. Then another lady in another investigation got the name Becca, again upstairs in the Brown house.
Wow.
Now, Dina was trying to reach the spirit of a child, of a girl, because On September 19th, 2008, I was giving a Friday afternoon tour of the site as an interpreter or tour guide at Slater Mill. And after our group left Sylvanus Brown House, a lady taking the tour told me she had something she needed to share with me. Well, before she left that day, the lady reminded me she had something to say. This lady related that when she was looking at the spices garden in back of the Sylvanus Brown House, she happened to glance up at one of the gambrel-style windows looking out from the unrestored bedrooms on Sylvanus Brown House, 3rd floor. And she saw, looking down at her, the face and form of a little girl wearing a bonnet. Now, the lady looked back down at the spices garden and somewhat apprehensively looked back up, and that little face was still looking down at her.
Wow.
I asked her, was it anybody who works here at Slater Mill in period costume? She said, no, this was a child in old-fashioned clothing. I know that lady was sincere because her bottom lip was trembling when she told me that.
It's too bad she didn't have a camera with her at that point.
And other people have seen a child in that house in old-fashioned clothes. She's been described as about 8 or 9 years old, wearing a white dress. One young man on a tour asked about who he thought was a reenactor. He said she walked from one room to another inside the Sylvanus Brown House while he was taking the tour, and she must have been wearing slippers because she didn't make any sound as she walked from one room to the next.
Wow.
And we have heard a child's voice humming, murmuring. Usually can't make out what she's saying, but when we've played music inside Sylvanus Brown House, she hums along with it.
Wow, that's
and
amazing.
It's going to happen daytime or the evening tours.
And it's nice, too, that it was caught on 2 separate recorders. It kind of validates, you know.
Right,
that
more
it really
validation, coupling, further confirming that there's some kind of personality there. And she's usually heard on the stairwell. She's been recorded, and we've heard her daytime tours, nighttime. What she says when she's on the stairwell is, "oui." Now, we don't know if that's French for yes or a child
just
just
being
saying
playful.
"oui." And I hear footsteps coming from the upstairs. If I'm down in the kitchen area, I'll go upstairs. Nobody's upstairs.
Wow, that's amazing. It must be great to work there.
Keeps it
Really
interesting. Yeah, it's a privilege
the history
to work
alone.
there.
At this point, we're going to have to stop. We're down to about the minute and a half mark here for
I
the show.
told you this would go by quickly.
It is. It's amazing. And unfortunately, we are at the end of the show, but we'll definitely have to have you come back on for another
I hope you do.
interview. It
I
would
hope
be
you do.
great. So with that, we're going to wrap up this show for tonight. I'd like to thank everybody for watching and welcome Scotty once again as the new co-host to Haunted Happenings. You can tune in 2 weeks. We're going to have Kyle back on, actually, again, to talk about another adventure that you were on. So with that, I'm Jake.
And I'm Scott.
Don't forget to look under your beds and in your closets before you go to sleep because you never know who or what might be in there with you. Until next time, good night.
Good night.